Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And Vets Social Voices, which is our podcast, we have been actually off air. It's fast approaching 6 months, so we're back, and I am really excited because I was lucky enough to go to the DAV Patriot Boot Camp in South Carolina in February, and I was able to meet so many really just amazing people. And if you have not had an opportunity to go to the DAV Patriot Boot Camp, I'm going to highly recommend it to you. I mean, this is like a jam-packed, especially, I should say, it's jam-packed with mentors and knowledge and value, but also the DAV Patriot Boot Camp. I mean, networking opportunities. There's so much of it, but I was able to really, if you're going through ideation or you're having any type of imposter syndrome, or you just got to work some stuff out. Like, basically, to me, DAV Patriot Boot Camp was a therapy session for entrepreneurs. So I was like, I was at home there. I needed it. I still need it. And I think my next guest can testify to that for sure. And our first guest really of 2026 and launching our new season of Vet Social Voices. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring our guest in, because this isn't about Ryan. This is about Karmin and Karmin coaches. So, hello, how are you?
Hello, I am wonderfully well. I love that intro.
You've seen it now a few times. It could get a little crazy in the background of my world. So I do appreciate you not only taking your time, but allowing some grace with me
No worries.
as I'm trying to work through technical glitches, not only up here, but also with the internet as well.
Listen, in this world of technology, nothing's guaranteed.
That is true. That is true. And AI, I think, it's becoming self-aware. I really feel like it is.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, I saw my calendar started moving dates around on its own, and I'm telling you, it really happened. And I talked to another person on Monday, and they said the same thing happened to them. So there is something going on with this.
Something's happening in the metaverse, right?
For sure. So, Karmin, I met you down at DAV Patriot Boot Camp.
Yes, we had an awesome time. Awesome time. Oh my God. It was therapy for me too.
I think it was therapy for everybody that was there. I mean, it really is one of those experiences that, I can't say it enough, whether it's Patriot Boot Camp or you go to EBV with IVMF or any of these other programs, to be able to come back together with your community that you thought that you lost, as you transition out of service. And now you find out all these people are on the other side of the fence,
right?
And they don't know what's going on either. They're trying to figure out, what am I? Who am I? And who are you, Karmin? Who are you?
Yeah, I always tell people and start off with, I'm just a little girl from Cleveland, Ohio, who never knew there was such a bigger world outside of where I grew up. I'm originally from a portion of Cleveland, Ohio called East Cleveland. Go Shaw Cardinals. That's my high school. And didn't realize the interconnectedness that I had in my community. When I grew up in a community that was very interconnected. We were very tight knit as a group. Once you had a friend group, you remained friends throughout high school, from elementary, middle school to high school. We had a lot of elementary schools that matriculated along one another. So we all met up at middle school and then high school. There was one middle school and one high school in my area. So all the elementary schools merged into those middle school and high school days. And just had fun, no fear of safety, just, oblivious to the bigger world until I graduated from high school. Then my eyes were wide open. I joined the Army my 11th grade year with the delayed entry program, and then went off to the wild blue yonder A month after high school, what was I thinking? Well, I wasn't doing the thinking, just so I am
Yeah.
crystal clear, because it was actually my mother's idea for me to join the military. My mother,
Okay.
one of her brothers, two of her brothers who had been in the military. My mother had two brothers and a sister. My mother has passed. And one of her brothers and her got together and plotted my future.
Oh Lord, there you go.
Part of this plan was for Karmin to leave home and grow up. And so my mother and however they got in touch with the recruiter came to our home. And all I can recall initially was sitting down at the dining room table, listening to them talk. I was just at the table. And at the end of the conversation, the recruiter asked me some questions and they signed the deal, so to speak. And then I remember going and, taking their test, and then things went off from there. But I actually later, not initially, I had some animosity, I had some resentment, I had some anger, because I felt like decisions were being made for me. And because at that point in time, I was 17. I hadn't owned my voice yet and didn't really know who I was. And so I went along, as I did on many other things, with what my mother said. I figured she knew best. And ultimately, I realized she did, but not at the time. So I went off puffing and huffing. And it took me about 3 years to acclimate, to get used to being away from home. I had never really been away from home for an extended period of time before. So it was a whole culture shock for me.
Okay.
But once I finished basic and AIT, I went into the medical field. At that time, I was a 91 Bravo. So I learned all the basic medical skills, and then went to AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training for Non-Military People. Try to remember not to just share acronyms, but explain them. And then I had the opportunity to come back home to be a recruiter's assistant. And that really enhanced my sense of purpose. And so I was able to go back to my high school and speak to high school students and some other students in other places. And that really gave me a sense of purpose and helped to hone my identity. And I was promoted before I even went to my first duty station. Because
Congrats.
yeah, I came on my little stripe. I was a big soldier, my PV2 stripe.
The mosquito wings.
Yes, exactly. But from there, things just continued to move forward. Once I became a sergeant, I wanted to do a little bit more in the medical field. And so I was at a duty station at that time in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and had spoken with various persons in the medical community in specialty areas, and decided that I wanted to go back to school for respiratory therapy. And so that's what I did. Actually, right before I got to Fort Sill, I'm sorry, I went from Germany to respiratory therapy school and then to Fort Sill. And so I did that for a couple of years. And I guess I'm always looking for the next best thing, because I didn't stop there. Talked to some people again, and then decided that I wanted to go to officer school. And so I went back home to Cleveland, Ohio, and went to Reserve Officer Training, ROTC. And it was an accelerated programs. I had some college before I went, so I only had to do 2 years of the program.
Okay.
I finished that program as a little officer, a little butterball, as they call it, my little gold bar. And had a very interesting journey. When I tell people, they go, I've never heard that story before from anybody.
Yeah.
My journey had to do with my pursuit of, I would guess at this time I could actually identify it specifically. At that time, I didn't realize, but I was really pursuing my value and my worth. I come from the medical field, but for whatever reason, Uncle Sam thought it would be a wonderfully great idea to offer me an active duty position in air defense artillery. And I thought, they have got to be crazy.
Oh boy.
What am I going to do behind some missiles and rockets? So I turned down the active duty position. And at that time, what would happen is if you didn't take the active duty position, then you would go into the reserves. So I went into the Army Reserves and had to fight for the medical service corps. So I went from the active duty air defense artillery offer, to declining that, to then being portioned out to various fields of service. I went
Oh Lord.
some time being in the chemical corps. I went some time being in the mortuary affairs. I went through some time being in the quartermaster. I actually went to quartermaster basic for officers and finished that. And I thought, this has nothing to do with medical. I still want to be in the medical corps. So I had to keep writing letters of appeal. And finally, after about the 5th letter, I guess they got tired of seeing my name. They awarded me the medical corps officer position. So I went into medical corps as a 73 Alpha, I think it was at that time.
Okay.
And then I was satisfied. I felt like I was back home. And so I did social work as a reserve officer for a while, and then was dual headed. I was able to then come on board as a government employee after some later years. And so I was working as a reserve officer and then as a government entity for several years. And I was able to be promoted on both sides. I retired in the Army Reserve as a major, and I retired from the civil service as a GS-13. And so I think I did okay. I think my mother had a good vision.
Yeah, I think you did really well for sure. I was actually enlisted first too, and then Sergeant Hunt bounced out of the Army April of 2001. I could see Fort Drum in my rear view mirror, and I was like, I am done. And I did the typical soldier thing. I did the flip off in the rear. I'm never seeing you again. And then I had actually received a scholarship to go to a school about 66 miles from Fort Drum. 9/11 happened. Yeah. I joined the Army ROTC. I just had a very strong calling, but I also joined the reserves as a cadet. And so they hand me, for the first drill, they hand me the roadmap. They're like, do you think you could find your way to Fort Drum, cadet? So I was right back as a cadet drilling on Fort Drum, which was interesting. But to say, and I also, so I feel you. I went through the journey, so to speak, from enlisted to officer side. But how do you think you did with finding I think you did excellent on your overall journey, but finding your value and your worth, what has that led you to?
Yeah.
What's the outcome for that?
As it probably has been for many people, it took me a while, longer than I probably had conscious awareness of. I came into the military with a lot of trauma and a lot of insecurities, a lot of lack of self-confidence, a lot of low self-esteem, and just a myriad of deficits. And so they were definitely working against me for a long time. And when I was able to get to a position of what I felt would be influence with my reserve officer position, and once you kind of get through the basic areas and you move into being a captain and then you move into being a major, you have higher levels of expectations and responsibilities and greater levels
for
of
sure.
influence. And so those positions, I think, really launched me and catapulted me into pushing myself to do things that I didn't believe I could do. As well as being dual-headed and also being a civil service government employee, I had the opportunity to have a lot of different areas of responsibility. And a lot of them were unique to my personhood as an African-American woman. Oftentimes I found myself in positions where I was either the first person in that job, so sort of starting the position from the ground up and building the program, or I had come behind someone that had a really good reputation and had really performed well. And so I felt like, okay, I can't fail. I've got to measure up. So some people would call it pressure, some people would call it motivation, some people would call it a challenge, but however one would look at it, it definitely helped to shape me into being the better person and to being the
And I
best
call that grit.
and grit, right? Some would call it grooming. I had very good mentors. I had people that wouldn't allow me to settle for less than what was better in me. And so that really, I think was my proving ground. And so I had the opportunity to really sit with people that had been through the muck and the mire of the not only military side of things, but also the government side of things. So they were able to provide me really good mentorship and guidance and insight, and also call me on the carpet and not allow me to get away with things. And so, they would challenge me in ways that I needed to be challenged, but also reward me when it was right to reward. And so I would get step increases. I would get, annual bonuses. I would get on the reserve side, I would get opportunities to go to different trainings and things. And so I really can kind of look back and see the trajectory of how I'm able now to be a business owner and kind of deal with the day-to-day challenges of business life. All of those military and government experiences have prepared me for where I am now. So, being an office staff of one is not something new to me because I've been in those kinds of positions before. I had a particular job where my supervisor was actually in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was stationed in Washington, D.C. And so I had not that direct supervisory report support there, but I knew that if I needed him, all I had to do was call.
For sure.
So it really built me up from the inside out, and that's something that I really hold very near and dear.
Wow. It seems like well, it doesn't seem, it's the truth that you took a lot of your experiences from the military and maybe overall in life, and you've applied that as an entrepreneur. Why don't you,
Absolutely.
what are you doing, Karmin? What's your gig, your hustle?
Well, my
Your business?
pastor would say, "Do you sleep?" Because I'm doing a lot.
Yeah, I just had that. Someone just asked that to me yesterday. They're like, Ryan, you got some dark circles under your eyes on one of those reels.
We have to do that visual check in the mirror every morning. But no, it's a good busy. It's a good engagement. I love giving back, and I guess I always have. That's probably why I went into social work. Part of it was to really understand who I was, but then the other part of that was to give back to others. And so I'm still doing that in various ways. In my church community, I'm a leader there. In business, I particularly focus on women of color, single women, women that are 30 years of age and over, military women veterans, and mothers with daughters. And at this point in business and in life, I do that and can do that because I'm each one of those women. And so I've had the life journey in all of those areas. And so I can identify with women that are walking those life steps out. And so I come alongside women, and I kind of call it in a couture way. You think about, you go to a specialty store and there are not a lot of things in that store that are multiples. Generally, they're one of a kind type of items, whether it's clothing, shoes, or jewelry. And so that's how I set up my coaching services, to be very specific and specialized for that individual woman, because I believe that they're worth it. They're worth them pouring back into themselves. And I want to give them the best of who I am. And so we have a conversation about their life challenges, where they've been, where they are, where they want to go. And then we get to an understanding of what's going to be the best steps for them now and how they can get to where they want to be within a reasonable amount of time. Rome wasn't built in a day, nor was it tore down in a day. And so some things, as we have lived out life, have taken time. negatively and positively, to settle and be deposited in our life. And some things are going to take time to get rid of. And so we have honest, open conversations. Everyone is not a good fit for me, and I'm not a good fit for everyone. But those that we agree that we are going to partner together, there have been some really good outcomes. My intention is, to not coach someone, then they're not going to have a great experience. Not a good experience, but a great experience. And so I tell women that my job, my role is to get them from good to great. We have good lives, but I want them to have a great life, to have the best life. And so my platform is abundant living. And I believe that you should model what you're teaching, what you're preaching, what you're coaching. And so my life is pretty full in many good ways. But I really have been able to help women. I help them identify via what we call a life wheel. And it's just like the spoke of the wheel on a tire, a bicycle tire. And so all of those different spokes represent an area of our life, whether it's family, finances, whether it's social engagements, whether it's your spirituality, your self-identity. But each one has a representation of who we are. And I help women get very clear about who they are, why they are, and what it is that they're here to do. So you would say their identity, their purpose, their life calling, their life goals, dreams, desires, all of those things. And it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Because when you're clear about who you are and what you're here to do, then it makes life more palatable. It makes it more digestible, more manageable. And so I have women agree to work with me for at least 3 months. And then if we need to extend it from there, we do. Sometimes women do, and sometimes they don't, because they have either reached the goal that has been primary for them, because we're only going to start with one.
Okay.
We may identify 3 to 4, but we're going to narrow it down to the priority, to the first one, and to start with that one. And then sometimes they want to continue on with some others. I give them tools, I give them stepping stones. My goal, as I did also when I was a clinical counselor, is to not make people dependent and reliant on me. Is to make them self-sufficient, to pull out what's in them, to polish it, to enhance it, so that they can move forth living the life that they desire to live.
Wow. Wow. And how many women have you served at this point, if I can ask?
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I'd have to
okay.
go back and
I
do it.
put you on the spot on that one, but
No,
lots.
that's fine. Well, I say that because if I combine my clinical time with my private business time, I probably couldn't be able to count. In business, I've been in business since 2017.
Okay.
And as most people in business, we start off wanting to help the world. So I was going to help all women with everything, no matter
For
what.
sure.
And then I gain a little bit more business savvy. I become much more aware about how to manage and how to steward a business, and realize, yeah, you can't do that. You've got to have a niche, as we call it.
Yeah.
And so once I was able to identify that, that helped me to narrow down the population, the people group that I was meant to serve. And so I would say I've become very clear about who that people group has been since probably 2020. And since that time, it's been over 100 women.
Wow.
Because it's either been I've mentored them, I've coached them, or just come alongside them as a friend, but there's been some coaching within that relationship. And so sometimes it's been dual. I've had some wins from being connected with some women, and they've had some wins from being connected with me. But I'm very much focused on relationships. That is a part of my coaching program. And those relationships being healthy, because if we look at our world at large today, we're living not only in chaos, but we're living in very unhealthy times. And people need someone, whether we recognize it or not, someone that will unapologetically, unjudgmentally connect with them to help them be the best that they can be.
Amen. You know that I believe in that for sure. And I like the idea. There's two things I was thinking about. But one is I really love the idea of, and I think you were saying this, if you help one, I'm saying it maybe a little different way, but if you help one person, the impact, it's like a ripple. That one conversation, that 3 month coaching, it's perpetual. It goes out across time,
Absolutely.
and it is
Absolutely.
helping it's helping more than those 100 people. You've helped
Absolutely.
without knowing it, or with thinking about it, or without thinking about it, thousands of people, really, just because of the impact of your words and your actions and what you're doing. Secondly, take it down a step, a little deep there for a second, but
Yeah.
we did this. I went to Oklahoma State University's Veteran Entrepreneur Program,
Mhm.
and I don't know if this is the same thing or similar exercise. So they had us take out a piece of paper, and I think it was a circle, or maybe it was an octagon or a hexagon. I can't remember exactly, but it was cut into pies, and you had to place what you thought was important.
Mhm.
The different things like family, business, travel, and you
Yeah.
put those things, and then you gave it an initial score. From
Mhm.
0
It is the
to
same. Yep.
10, and
Mhm.
then trying to figure out, well, what's really important. Where do I, now that I've looked at that, and now I can visualize it.
Yes.
What are the things that are really important, and how can I improve those things over the next 90 days, over the next 6
Absolutely.
months and year?
Absolutely. Yep.
So is that is
Like,
that similar to what you
yep,
do
that's it.
in a sense?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm very visual, so I love to share visual aids with people. I think that we all learn in various ways, and those very primary ways of learning are important to include. And so, some of us can get it by talking. We catch it very quickly and we remember it. People need to see it. Some people need to write it out. And so we get the opportunity in coaching one-on-one with the women that I'm coaching to do all of that. Um, and so having that visual also gives you the opportunity to refer back to something. So you can go back and then periodically do your own assessment,
For
because
sure.
we're not going to talk every day. And so it helps them to monitor and to be able to track and to measure. We incorporate SMART goals, and that's having very specific, having measurable, having attainable, having reasonable and time
Realistic.
goals.
Yeah.
And so we're going to incorporate that as well. And so that way, that individual can be their own coach, so to speak, in between the times that she and I are going to be in conversation together. And so it's I think sometimes more powerful than people realize. I've had women, say, remember that thing you shared with me, and I've shared it with so and so and so and so. Through social media, we can meet a multitude of people. So you do never know who you're having impact and influence over or with. But what I do know, not from my own testament, but from others, that the little things that I've been able to provide have actually made big differences in others' lives.
For sure.
And so that gives me continued motivation to keep going. Because again, the longevity is what I'm shooting for. I don't want you just to have a quick win. I want you to be able to have sustainable results in your life.
Yeah, it's got to be sustainable for sure. So you sent me some information. You have a book, a workbook. Can you
Yes,
tell
yes,
us a little
yes,
bit about
yes,
the
yes.
workbook?
I
And
own
also,
a baby.
for
I'm so
everyone that's out there, if you're part of
proud
our,
of
we'll update the LinkedIn post and our social posts, and we'll make sure that you have the link to this workbook.
it.
It'll also go out via email on our
Yeah.
Vet Social newsletter. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's called Be True to You, the Master Plan for Authentic, Abundant Living by moi, Karmin R. Jenkins. And so what I did was combine clinical experiences and knowledge with, I am a certified life coach. And so with some of those certifying life coaching things that I learned, along with, I'm also a certified disc consultant. And
Oh,
so kind of incorporated all of that and then narrowed it down to what would be palatable, what would be easily applied. And so what I wanted to do was to give women a tangible tool, which is what I consider the workbook to be, that they could sort of do a self-study with. independent of anyone else other than themselves. And so, kind of like the life wheel, it helps the woman walk through various areas of their life: mind, a set of abundance, physical well-being, emotional and mental abundance, spiritual abundance. You keep hearing that word abundance, right? Financial abundance, purposeful living, the power of giving back, career alignment and abundance, and cultivating your best self. As women, we often spend a lot of time pouring into others, but we don't always take the time to do self-care and to pour into ourselves. And so I really wanted to give women something of value that they would be able to use over and over again, and even share with someone else if that's what they were led to do. And so it's been available since January of this year. I started working on it intentionally last July. I kind of been piddling around before that, but got to the point where, okay, you just need to get this done. So last July, I started kind of putting everything together, and then worked with individual to help me do the graphics. I'm not a graphic designer by any means. And so we were able then to pull everything together and then get it. If anyone has ever worked with Amazon, they have very specific requirements
Yes,
of
I
how
do.
you input information into their system and upload it for them to approve it. So once they approved everything, that actually took a couple of tries. Then I was able to release the book, and it's been going really well. I've gotten really good feedback. At some point, my goal this month is to kind of do a post and share some testimonies from women that have purchased it and that are using it. But what I have learned is that when your heart's in the right place, and you're doing things with good intentions, you generally get good results. And so I have been delighted to hear the testimonies from women and continue to receive some.
Beautiful. So if someone wants to schedule a call with you, is there a website where they should head off to?
Oh yeah, it's really simple. I was just having a consultation call with the lady day before yesterday, and she's like, "So how do we set up a session with you?" I said, "It's pretty simple. I'm not complicated like some people at all. You click on a link, you sign up." And so I have a Calendly link that is available through my website. I can send you that link as well to post.
For
We
sure.
set up an initial 30-minute consultation, again, just to make sure I have clarity on what the woman is looking for. She has clarity on what I can provide. And then if we agree that we're a good fit, then we move forward from there and we start setting up sessions. I like, life is complicated enough. And so as much as I can help make the life seamless for someone else, that's my goal to do.
Beautiful.
That's pretty much it.
All right. Awesome. Well, we're coming close to actually we're over time, but that's okay. We're the ones who decide how much time we can have on here. Um, Leave us with one potential piece of advice for someone that's transitioning out of the military, or someone that's already transitioned and they're in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is applicable for both, and that's don't quit. Don't quit, don't give up. You're going to have some times of discouragement, and maybe many of them. You're going to get some no's. You're going to get some even disappointments, but keep the main thing the main thing. Keep your goal in mind. There are times in life, in business, that you have a great idea, but others may not buy into it. That doesn't mean it's still not a great idea. It doesn't mean it's not a great plan. It just may mean you have to look elsewhere for support and services and resources. I would recommend for any veteran, every veteran, to take advantage of every veteran resource opportunity. For a long time, I didn't do that. And I realized what I missed out on when I began to take advantage of it. So don't allow pride or anything else preclude you from taking advantage of, and I'll maybe not say advantage, taking on the opportunity to receive what you have earned. You've earned the
Right.
resources. So use them.
Yeah.
And for anyone else, check out what's available for you if you haven't done that. there is so much available in this world today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Karmin, thank you very much. And you're coming to the stage, the virtual stage at Vet Social.
Yes, in September.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
yes,
excited.
yes.
And if
My
you don't know
God.
what we're talking about and you just tuned in, you're on my LinkedIn, somehow you don't know what Vet Social is, definitely head over to 26.veterans.socialsummit.com. Carmen's going to be speaking there along with some other fabulous military Avengers. So I'm really excited. Well, Carmen, we're out of time. I want to thank you very much. I'm kicking you off the stage.
You.
And thank you
With
very
love.
much.
He's doing it with love, everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Until next time, Ryan.
Exactly.
Take care, audience.
Oh man, Carmen brought and brings so much value. So, wow, we're going to have her back, but she will be at Veteran Social Summit 2026 on 9 and 10 September, virtually everywhere there's internet. So check us out. And again, it's going to be, we're going to be dropping nuclear value here in about 4 or 5 months. So you have to attend. You have to do it. It's free 99. So come on, check it out. Aside from that, I want to wish you all well. And we're going to be bringing Vet Social back. Vet Social Voices is back in the mix now with our first live episode done. And we're going to be hitting you up here on your social media channels. You have no choice but to tune in and watch us. And until next time, be safe out there.